Hey everybody! Welcome to Voiceful with June. Today I'd like to talk about triggers and complex PTSD. I'm sure that a lot of you are familiar with what PTSD is. So I just want to go through a little bit of the similarities and differences between PTSD and complex PTSD. Now, they both have flashbacks, but with complex PTSD, which is also known as childhood PTSD, because childhood or complex PTSD is brought on by repeat events, usually in childhood, that add up to a very long period of time of abuse. You can have child abuse, you can have children of war, those have been abducted, the list goes on. With PTSD, it's usually one event. You will see that with veterans, those have been in car accidents, those have been in natural disasters, those types of things. So with complex PTSD, it's very hard to know what the world is outside of our trauma, at least for myself. My trauma began when I was 3 years old. I was sexually violated at 3, and that continued on up until I was a teenager. So there is no real before my trauma in my life, so it's hard to know anything outside of how I feel. And with working with a therapist and doing all of the research into my trauma and all the things that I've been able to remember, we've kind of came up with the educated guess that I have had complex PTSD since I was a small child. And in complex PTSD, you're going to have a lot of problems with trusting other people, with trusting yourself. You're going to have a lot of problems with emotional dysregulation. That's what I want to talk the most about today, because that is the biggest thing that goes along with the complex PTSD that I have found. And what leads to emotional dysregulation is what we call triggers. Now, a lot of these words are being thrown around and not used in the way that they should be, so they're losing their power. Now, triggers are any kind of smell, sound, sight, something said. It can be a time of year. Excuse me if you notice me reading off of my list. My memory is not wonderful, so I want to make sure that I'm touching on all the bases, that I'm not forgetting anything. So I just want to give a couple examples of my own personal triggers. I have a trigger for the smell of cats. The smell of their cat box or any kind of smell of cats will trigger me. It will throw me right back into being a child all over again. The time of year around the holidays, it starts usually for me right around Thanksgiving, and it goes straight through Valentine's Day, sometimes even into Easter. I'll get very depressed. I'm very short-tempered. Little things really irritate me. I hyper focus on small things that are close to me that I think that I can have control over. Christmas when I was a child was not a very good time, and it has not gotten much better since I've been an adult and had children. We actually had to go through and redo the way that we are celebrating Christmas because it's such a big trigger for me. Yelling is also a big trigger for me. As soon as someone starts raising their voice, it feels like a personal attack, and I will start defending myself in that way. And when I become dysregulated, these triggers can add up. Okay? Now, say you didn't sleep very well the night before. Maybe the baby was up. Maybe you had to work a third shift. Maybe you got called in. Maybe you had an emergency. Whatever. Life happens, right? So you have a really high lack of sleep. So then You have to leave the house really quick. You didn't have time to grab anything to eat. You're running on caffeine. You drop the babies off at daycare, at school. You get your butt to work. All of these triggers, these little things that are really getting in you, are really frustrating you. Imagine them as a pressure cooker, okay? We're going to put all that stuff in this pressure cooker. The kids are screaming. I wore 2 left shoes. I left my house without coffee. I have a huge stack of stuff in my inbox when I get to work that I have to get through before noon. We're pushing these into a pressure cooker that is already boiling because we already didn't start our day right. So we can only add so many of these small, may seem piddly triggers into our emotional pressure cooker of our brain, right? If we're not doing anything for ourselves, if you're anything like me and like a lot of people that I've spoken to that have childhood or any kind of trauma, you put yourself last on the care list. So if you're not taking any time to re-energize yourself, you're not refilling your cup back up. All of these triggers are just bubbling and overflowing, and it's going to come to a point that it's going to blow. That leads to emotional dysregulation. That leads to there's going to be a huge outburst. Maybe it's over the smallest thing. Maybe your husband missed the laundry hamper and his sock is right all up in on your kitchen floor. Okay? That's the end. You have hit the end of what you can handle. So the outburst is usually very upsetting to the people around you because it seems to come out of nowhere. Because you're pushing all these things down. You're not important, right? That's what we've been taught since childhood. If you're anything like me, you were taught that your needs are not very high on the to-do or the care list, even. So we don't usually have very much control in our reasoning skills at this point, okay? We have tons of research done on this. You can look it all up, okay? About MRIs where they're looking at a patient's brain when they're in this emotional dysregulation, where their emotions are just all over the place. And the one side of your brain that is in control of your reasoning skills is very dim. Depending on the person, it can be almost non-existent. And then you have the other cortex of your brain, the right cortex, which is in charge of your emotions. That is all sorts of active, okay? It's going explosion active. Your emotions are all crazy. It wants to blow up. It's had enough. So when we're in those situations where it feels like we have no control over the things that we're saying. I know that my poor husband has gone through a lot with me in being emotionally dysregulated, especially before I started therapy, especially before I started dealing with the things that have happened to me in my past. I had absolutely no idea how to communicate. My idea of communication was to get so upset because I didn't voice what I wanted, and then it came to a point where I got sick of what I felt like was taking advantage of. I didn't communicate that in a healthy way, and I would just blow up with everything that had been adding up. The things that he wouldn't do, the things that he did that I felt were wrong, the things around our home that weren't being done, the things that I felt were all on me as a responsibility. All of it comes, I'm just word vomiting this onto my poor husband and basically telling him, handle it all. And then I would go in our bedroom, shut the door, and I would isolate. Okay? But my emotional dysregulation leads to something called dissociation. And I will go into another video about that later on, explaining more about that. And it's something that happens to quite a few people that have trauma and have mental health struggles of any kind. But I don't want to confuse you. So we're going to be about triggers and emotional dysregulation today. Okay, but I promise we will go more into the dysregulation in a future video. So when you are emotionally dysregulated, it floods your body with cortisol. Okay, cortisol is the emotion, or is the hormone that comes in when you're being chased by a bear. When your fight or flight instincts come in, that's what cortisol is doing. It floods your body to give you enough oomph to do what you need to do in order to stay survived. So in that mindset, you are in survival mode. Cortisol, crazy, survival mode. So your breathing increases, your heart rate increases, you become more clumsy. Your brain isn't paying attention to everything that's right in front of it right now. It's not paying attention to the details. It's paying attention to, I need to do whatever the heck I need to do to survive this very moment. And when you've had trauma that you have not dealt with, even small things will set you into this emotional dysregulation, which can set you into feeling like you're in survival mode. It's automatic. Your brain automatically thinks that even a small thing, like a sock on the floor, is going to harm you in some way. So it's going to do this regardless. If you don't know how to catch it and be able to talk yourself out of it. So your voice tone goes flat. My husband gets very worried when he notices this. I kind of act like there's nothing there. It's a robot. My emotions, everything, gone. If my voice goes flat, that's usually a sign that it's going to get bad for a dissociation. You can come out with rage. Just that overwhelming anger that you feel like there's no place to go and you don't know what to do with it. I've had moments where the anger and the rage feels like it's going to blow me up from the inside because I am just so angry, so full of it. So those around us may believe that we no longer care because many of us will only be able to focus on the negatives. This is one of the things that we're going to be working on, how to talk ourselves out of those negatives when we get into that space. It's going to be difficult. I'm not going to fib to you. It's very hard to catch yourself when something has been so automatic. When you get into the place of being dysregulated and you're just in that survival mode, it's very hard to get into that reasoning part. Like I said, that left part of your cortex in your brain is shut down. It's not working. The reasoning part of you is not going to work right now. Not when you're emotionally dysregulated. These are things that once you learn your triggers, you can work your way back and find out where it originated and how to avoid them in the future. So, you become flooded until you're overwhelmed with the emotions. That's when the outburst happens. That's when the feel like you're going to explode from the inside out comes from. You become restless. I start to pace. I have MS and I don't usually walk very well. It usually causes me pain. It usually causes me to kind of walk like I'm drunk a little bit. When I am highly triggered, I will pace, even if I look like a drunk person trying to do a highway, thing with the cop. I will still do it. hyper focused on small inconveniences. I have hyper focused on, it's usually what's close to me, what I can get control over the quickest, and that's usually how clean my house is. I will start focusing on every little small speck in my home. Everything needs to be in its place, facing the right way, dusted, shiny, beautiful, clean. Hyper focusing on those tiny things just to get a sense of control. Because when our emotions are so out of control, it's scary. It gets really scary. And being scary can make it even worse. And when you're living with this flooding with cortisol, constantly in flight or fight mode, it's so unhealthy for your body. I went for almost my entire adult life now, living in the mode where I was going to constantly stay busy so I didn't have to focus on anything that happened. The thing is, even if you're not focusing on it, your brain remembers it and your body remembers it. And that cortisol is still coming in your body. It's still making your muscles tense. It's still making you feel like someone's constantly judging you. So we need to remember that all of this stuff is going to be hard work. It's not only an uphill climb. There are lots of hills and valleys to this. It is a roller coaster ride, but the biggest weight off I have found for myself is to know that I'm not alone. And it gives me the strength to keep going, knowing that other people have gone through this. Other people, no matter how traumatic your background is, there are other people that understand. There are other people that want to have these hard conversations, that don't want to just pretend that it didn't happen and just push it under the rug. There are those of us that know that we have to face these demons to get them quiet. This is a fight that we've been having in our brains for as long as many of us can remember. And I know that you are probably just as tired as I am. It's time to start taking our control back. And together we can do this. And I'm going to try and help the best that I can. I am not a professional therapist, but I am a survivor and a warrior of my own trauma. And I'm just going to be helping you with the ways that helped me. And we can stumble and fall and pick each other back up. So, in closing today, I want to show another exercise. Okay. Put your hands at your chest in a praying motion. Okay. Straighten out your shoulders, let them hang loose. Make sure your jaw is not clenched up. Now take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now we're going to bring our hands forward, still in the prayer stance. Now push them together until your hands start to clench and they're shaking. Keep them shaking. Now breathe in. Breathe out and release. Good job. I'll see you again soon.